Previously on the Project Umbrella podcast.
This is right up Mr. Spencer's street as it features music and ballet.
The moment when I didn't literally shit myself.
I can't remember why we added George.
Because I've had 2 breakdowns in 2 podcasts now, and I'm not on for a third, please.
This was one of those live debate, decide be Donald Trump.
I sound quite posh. I'm not posh, but I sound quite posh. So I
say Castle.
Castle.
Too many A's in that. Too many A's.
Project Umbrella.
Hello and welcome to episode 34 of the Project Umbrella podcast, testing mercenaries around the world with BOWs and standing tall when our members democratically voted to leave the internet. #Brexit. I'm Nick, better known as Neptune. Let's see who's joining us today on the podcast. He's currently being investigated for having a young boy as his sidekick. It's Batman. He's been recovering after just 1 week of playing Umbrella Corps. It's Stars Tyrant.
Hello.
What's brown, furry, and has green flesh? A kiwi fruit? No, it's just an undead New Zealander. It's Romby. He designs the most beautiful and spectacular country mansions, but decides to live in Bristol. It's George Trevor.
Howdy.
And finally, dining on liberal tears and the flesh of his deceased competitors, it's Mr. Spencer.
Hello.
Coming up on today's podcast, we'll be looking at all the news, both game news and, brace yourself folks, site news. No sub-discussion today, just a full-bodied look at Resident Evil 7, the tech demo that came out over E3 a couple of weeks ago. And of course, we'll be rounding off with another devilish edition of Neptune's Biohazard quiz, some particularly nasty questions from our members for you to get your teeth into. So without further ado, we'll start with the news. So we can't avoid it, chaps. The first bit of news is that Resident Evil 7 has been announced and was shown off in all its glory at E3. Obviously, the whole podcast will be talking about it in detail, but this is just the headlines, should we say. Released very soon, actually, January 24th, 2017. I think that came as a bit of a shock to everyone that it was so far in development, around 65%. And for the first time ever, we're going to have a first-person numbered title, and it's going to be using the not gimmicky in any way whatsoever PlayStation virtual reality headset console thing.
Is that the technical?
Yeah, I've had that through from Sony, the VR technical effect, yes. The game's going to be built up using the new Resident Evil engine, which sounds exciting, and the director is Koshi Nakashinji, who did Revelations. So if we just kind of focus on what that encompasses, what was everyone's views on the fairly early release date?
Can I quickly mention, because you talked about who was directing and producing it, isn't it an interesting fact that the writer is a Westerner for the first time? It wasn't familiar to me, but I think he's worked on a previous game.
He's worked on Fear and Spec Ops: The Line, which was quite well lauded for its story. It was very different.
No more translation issues.
That's not necessarily true.
A few years ago, if you told me that a Western writer was going to be doing it, it would have filled me with dread, but Spec Ops is a cracking story. It is a really well... I mean, the game is not necessarily the most amazing thing, but the writing in it is certainly memorable. As long as they don't fuck anything up, then let's go. Let's see what happens. The problem with Operation Raccoon City, which was also written by a Western writer, I believe, was the fact that it contradicted so much and was just utter shit.
Okay, well, I mean, most of the podcast we're going to be it's going to be, I think, a theory-based podcast, so everyone can have a view on where the game's going. But the other bit of major Resident Evil news, which couldn't have passed you by, was that Umbrella Corps has been released. Yay! Famitsu gave it a really high score, and everyone's like, oh, but the trailers are crap. And lo and behold, it is. IGN gave it 3.8 out of 10, GameSpot 3 out of 10, Video Gamer 4 out of 10, Game Rant a rather respectable 5 out of 10, which in my view says that's average. I think that's generous. Destructoid 3 out of 10, which confounded most people's views on the game before it got released. I think even YouTuber, was it Angry Gamer, pointed quite rightly out that the game was so crap it didn't even use the Resident Evil line, so it couldn't have to be associated with the series, but there we go.
Can we give an honourable mention to the Angry Joe?
That's what I meant, yeah, that's what I meant, yeah.
Because that was just phenomenal.
Yes, well worth YouTubing that. Players have reported numerous bugs with the game, and lo and behold, Capcom are working on a patch and doing some DLC. Yay, but it will be free. And we're going to have 2 new maps from the Arklay Mansion and the Langshang area from Resident Evil 6, as well as a new multiplayer mode.
That's just making a bad situation worse. It's just spreading the virus even further.
Sean, I think you've got some views on this game.
There are no words for how I feel about Umbrella Corps. It is redundant, unbelievably bad, irredeemably bad. It sends the fucking series back to 2012, the dark time. And I said, now we've got that out of the way, we're healing now. And then 2015 came along and it was the remake and Rev 2 and it was all brilliant again. And then this fucking game comes out and it's done me. I'm not gonna lie. I wrote a fucking goodbye post to the community on Biohaze. I actually published it, and it was up for a couple of hours if anybody saw it before I decided I was actually going insane. This game is just fucking unbelievable in terms of how awful it is. And the experiment as a single player mode is fucking. It's just I can't think of the words because my brain doesn't work when I allow Umbrella Corps in there. But if anybody in the community, and I'm fucking talking to you all now, believes this Wesker clone thing is true, then you can all just quite simply hand your Resident Evil cards in and fuck right off. You seriously can. And the thing is, I've had people coming up to me and saying, I think it's true. I think the Wesker in Resident Evil 5 was a clone. And I just, Jesus. All I want to do is I just want to just smash my skull against the brick wall. I really do. It's just... How can anyone see that as a good idea? It's almost like people want Resident Evil 5 to have a clone Wesker. And why? Why would anyone want to? Nick, why did you ask me? I'm done.
Like my son who's watching Game of Thrones, he 2 rooms away, heard every word. He just shouted out, how bad can it really be?
So you didn't like the game, Sean?
No, I'm out. I'm not... until we get... I can't.
Is it... I mean, I thankfully I've not played it. Is it so bad that it's bordering on good in the kind of Survivor type?
No.
This is quite a poor game technically, but
I think the biggest insult for me is the fact that they charge fucking. If you bought the premium digital version, it was like £32. And the thing is, there's like free to play games which are made better. They're designed better. They've got much more value in terms of artistry and how it's designed and crafted. There's just nothing. There's just nothing in here. It's a shell. It's a fucking festering, rotting corpse of a title. And I genuinely think the only reason some people are giving it a free pass is because it's connected with the Resident Evil series. If it was anything else, no one would bat an eyelid to it.
Romby, have you had the misfortune of playing it?
No, I decided to avoid it. I could have still picked it up because I was vocal about this whole canon part of it, but I'm still thinking about the Famitsu score and about how it's like, do they just not play those sort of games normally in Japan and they thought this is very different and gave it a high score, or are we just expecting this is a backhanded deal where they just basically gave it a score for money or for access to something? I don't know. It's horrible. I want to talk about the canon and the Antarctic lab because...
Oh my god, we're going to go there.
It has to be mentioned. I mean, come on.
Well, I'm still in the belief that this was a game that Slant 6 was working on before they dissolved, and this is just like leftover assets, because there's too many similarities in terms of its visuals. I cannot honestly believe that a boardroom in Capcom Japan thought this was a fucking good idea on any kind of level. The thing is, it's redundant from its conception. That's the problem. Whereas, there were rumours going around not long after Orc came out that they were working on a sequel.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be at all surprised. You know, you're playing as like a USS kind of member in this as well, so it's not too hard to see the connections between them.
There's also that rumoured Wii U game, wasn't there? Resident Evil Bio Ops, I think was supposed to.
Oh yeah, I think it was.
So
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if this was it as well.
I just can't see Capcom honestly funding a project like this. It just really does feel like this is just leftovers from a really, really fucking bad idea.
If there's one person that can appreciate what Capcom was trying to do, it's Batman.
Oh, it's a cracking game.
Jesus Christ, I'm out.
Don't listen to him. He doesn't like Code Veronica.
Well, yeah, it's better than Code Veronica.
No, I'm done. See ya.
No, but what I will say though, I mean, we knew from the first trailer that it was going to look and play pretty poorly, and it was exactly that. When I got it took me like 10 minutes to get into it, and then I was just having mindless fun with it. I really don't think the game is as broken as people make out, and although the maps are quite small, you can literally do anything in them. There's vents to crawl through, you can climb up buildings, and the geography for like the village and even the Antarctic base is really, really quite faithfully done. And the experiment campaign itself doesn't harm the canon in any way whatsoever. The little sort of tidbits of lore we got were quite interesting, I thought.
There we go.
I really don't see the big deal with it. Yes, it's quite a poor game, but it was obviously just going to be a stopgap for Remake 2 and RE7, and that's exactly what it is. It's harmless. It's harmless fun.
Well, we will certainly dig further into those rather diametrically opposed views in a later podcast.
Just finish by saying I would probably have agreed with John on all those points if it was free to play. But I just think the fact that they've charged more money than a lot of free to play games that are made better. That's, you know, they've charged a good whack for this game.
I just want to say I'll agree with that, but I think part of the reason I've been so soft with it is because Capcom said it was canon and the experiment was the only thing I was interested in. I was fully expecting to have it sit down for one of these podcasts and try and think of a valid reason why the RPD would still be standing and why Raccoon City would still be there. But the explanation that it was a top secret replica for battle testing purposes, I thought
exactly from Resident Evil Retribution, the film.
Well, no, because
there we go.
Because it's not the whole city, it's just literally the front lobby of the RPD and the front street. I think it's acceptable.
But then I'm going to mention it. The Antarctic base doesn't make any frickin' sense.
No, it doesn't. I'm not going to try and defend that. That's.
But that's exactly what you just said. Like, it's easy to justify the RPD, but it's like, yeah, well, that is, but the Antarctic base isn't.
No,
you can't pick and choose.
No, but like the Antarctic base, if some of it was still going to stand, it's going to be much more likely than the police station, which you literally see get completely obliterated.
This is Romby's personal campaign and crusade against the Antarctic base. I watched it destroyed, damn it.
The only thing I like
watched it destroyed, damn it.
The only thing I like about... Oh, fuck off.
Right. Moving on, we have some Resident Evil 5 news. It's been recently released on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. The games are being gradually released over the year. So early reports suggest a solid port with noticeable frame updates evident in certain areas. However, players have reported a strange echo effect with the sound during Lost in Nightmares. Very odd. But otherwise, the general opinion on the internet seems to be quite happy. We've got a new Mercenaries United mode. And there's a new we spoke about it before we came on air, a new slightly custom camera mode where you zoom out a bit so you don't feel like you're Godzilla going through a tiny little village. So there's also an action assist designed to help keep the AI closer to the player during the dying status, which continually frustrates throughout the game. So, Stars, did you want to explain Mercenaries United mode? And we're not talking about Manchester City here.
Fucking hell, Alan Partridge just turned up, man.
That was really
Basically, what Mercenaries was shipped originally with the game, and you had 8 characters you couldn't unlock. I believe you had to unlock them originally. And then when the DLCs came out, The Lost in Nightmares and Desperate Escape, they also did what was called Mercenaries Reunion, I think, and that had Barry, Rebecca, Excella, Josh, and alternate versions of characters in the main game. But you could only ever play those 2 modes separately in the original. You could play the original 8 characters and the new 8 characters separately, whereas what Union does is it combines the 2, so you can have if you're playing it multiplayer, you can have matchups you couldn't previously do. Like now you can have Stars, Wesker and Rebecca taken from both sets, if you like, and it uses the scoring system from the Reunion, which I think is a lot easier to get your combos up and whatnot. So in that sense, in terms of content, it's kind of the definitive version that they've released, because that actually is content that you don't have on the PC version. The new camera mode is not been patched into the PC version, so it kind of is exclusive. And I will just say, the frame rate drops are noticeable, unforgivable in some of the cutscenes, but in no way are they a deal breaker. And I've seen a lot of online hysteria saying that, you know, Capcom have ruined the port and things like that. It's still probably the best version. It has, like, the shadows alone are better than a maxed out PC version. I compared the two side by side. The echoing effect you mentioned in Lost in Nightmares has varied between different playthroughs when you watch it on YouTube, so I'm wondering if it's certain people's surround setups or anything like that. I need to test it for myself. I've not quite done it yet. Solid. It's a solid port. It could be better. Maybe we'll get a patch which will fix everything. But compared to like the PS3 version, if you take the PS4 version is the best of the two versions that have been re-released this week. You compare it to the PS3 version, it's in every way better. It's a more consistent frame rate. The marsh levels have the full reflections that were seen in the PC and the 360 version. And at the end of the day, frame rate drops aside, it still looks fucking amazing. It doesn't look like this is a game that's like nearly 8 years old.
That's a ringing endorsement.
But I will say it does have its frame rate issues, which will be a deal breaker for some people.
How much is it?
$15.99, I think.
It'll probably go on sale as well, because the Capcom games like Resident Evil 6 is in that big in Japan sale right now. It's already gone down to £10. So if you don't get it now, it's definitely going to be probably on sale at some point, seeing how quickly 6 was. And also obviously there's the disc version coming out in the US.
Oh, I was going to ask about disc versions. Very quickly, what is this issue with frame rate drops? Because I was interested in terms of someone who suffers terrible motion sickness.
Resident Evil 5 on the PS3 and 360 ran at 30 frames per second. Quite a smooth experience. The 360 version did not have what's called VSync, where it prevents screen tear. So you had a fluid 30 frames a second. The PS3 version did have VSync, but it caused often frame rate drops to prevent screen tear, which is quite an ugly looking effect. So it was generally regarded that the PS3 version had the better cutscenes because there was no screen tear in those cutscenes. The 360 version had the better gameplay. PC version ran out at full 60, which meant very fluid gameplay. It looked amazing, maxed out graphics. It looked incredible. PS4 and Xbox One versions run at 60 frames a second as a base, but they are prone to drops. Now those drops still mean the game is running higher than the PS3 and 360 version, but you notice it gives a more choppy feel.
But they're still higher than the previous versions.
They are still higher, but some people would prefer to take a locked frame rate which never drops, because you could play The Last of Us on the PS4. You could choose to play that in 30.
Yeah, and same with Uncharted as well, which would be an option that Capcom could patch technically into the game if they were able to work it out, because I mean obviously it can be chosen on the PC version.
You could choose to play 60. Now what you tended to find was 60 played really, really well, and it was very responsive controls and everything, but the frame rate drops meant you noticed it a lot more. You know, all of a sudden it went from being fluid, and then you were just, oh, hang on a minute, that sort of section there was a bit choppy. It tended to drop. If you played it on 30, you're not getting like the full it's hard to describe, but you're not getting the full smoothness all the time. What you're getting is more consistency, and some gamers prefer the consistency of like having no frame rate drops. I myself let the frame rate go crazy, and let's see what happens.
It just results in input lag, and you feel that games that are dropping frames feel a little bit sluggish. Resident Evil 5's issue, it seems to be number of enemies on screen, so the amount of calculation that's going on seems to be slowing the clock on the game's run itself, as far as what I've read online. So the other question I was going to ask is, did I read correctly that allowed you to switch the QTEs off as well, like in general, as an option?
Yeah, you can, yeah. I think it even defaults as off, I think.
Oh, that's so good, because I remember mine, especially that Wesker QTE at the end, was just diabolical, because there was so much lag that eventually it would always register once and as not having pushed the buttons when they had. Just got so tight that having that off by default is a really good idea, and they're optional anyway, isn't it, Luke?
It's the same as 6. You can just deactivate them and it'll just automatically do them. I don't even think you get the button prompt.
The other thing I was going to ask as well, I was just reading just before, there's some sort of bug in the Mercenaries about dropping weapons or something. I didn't quite understand it. Do you know anything else?
I've seen that yet, but then to be fair, I've only briefly checked Mercs. I've not put any time into it.
Just something about something that's changed that may need patching, but I didn't quite understand it either. I wasn't even much of a Mercenaries player in the first place, so.
It's worth saying that these issues, they're quite widespread now, and many of the fans are being very vocal about that, the frame rates. That we may well get a patch, but then again, they didn't patch the sound issues in the remake.
Do any of these improvements make the game less tedious?
Nick, what are you doing?
That's called a provoking prod.
Do you know what? When I started playing it, I actually thought, you know what? I know this isn't the perfect Resident Evil experience, and I know that some of the fans have got issues with it. Do you know what I like about it? I like the fact that it's just Resident Evil, in terms of its story, gone epic. And I kind of like that. I tend to look at it beyond the gameplay and more, I just fucking adore this story and I adore the characters and the motivations that drive them. And look, at the end of the day, this is the game that brought me back from the brink, from Umbrella Corps. By fuckery, I was nearly out.
You've got that perspective of what they tried to do with 6, and now Umbrella Corps, like, there's definitely reasons to probably enjoy 5 now more than perhaps in the past.
But it's just history repeat itself. Everyone hated 4, and then 5 came out, and I was like, 4's alright actually. 5, oh, I hate 5. And then, 4's actually not too bad because they made the storyline a bit more relevant. And then 6, oh, I fucking hate RE6. RE5, yeah, it's great.
We always championed 5 from the day it came out for its story.
Yeah, that's true. We did.
The first time you got in that Umbrella Lab in Chapter 5 and you started reading files about James Marcus, it was like the series had come home.
Yeah, but every time I hear Sean talk passionately about the story, I completely agree. It makes me more frustrated with the game for not living up, because I completely agree with that. I always ask the same thing. I just don't know how Sean can't get past the complete linear, 100% orientated combat gameplay.
The thing is, a franchise being the same thing for its entirety of its existence is not a good thing. And, you know, if I hated mostly everything about the story in 4, I always admitted it played well.
Yeah.
So 5 was just 4 all over again in terms of gameplay. But it was wrapped around a story that I fucking adore. So to me, it was like the best of both worlds. I'm not saying it's the best experience, you know, in terms of gameplay, because the older games run circles around it. But I am appreciative of the fact that things evolve. And we're in the 20th anniversary of Resident Evil this year. If we'd been playing 20 years of camera angle games, and I genuinely mean this, if we were playing 20 years of camera angle games, I don't even think we'd be doing a podcast now, because I think the series would be fucking dead.
It's love, George. It's love.
I think, even I think would have got bored after 20 years of fixed camera angle, yeah. For me, again, I need to get past the motion sickness thing, which is a thing because it does affect, I've been online and it affects so many people, particularly with regard to RE5, so I'm very keen to play the HD to see if that improves, and also with that pulled back camera you were talking about, maybe the increase in frame rate will help that.
People have a go at it because they can argue it failed as a survival horror game, but you could argue that it was never designed as a survival horror game. It was Black Hawk Down with zombies, essentially. It was meant to be action-orientated.
With some of the best writing we've had in the series.
I'm just looking forward to when 7 comes out and we can all start appreciating RE6 even more like what else.
That'll not happen. Although, I don't hate 6 like a lot of people do. I will just quickly throw him back. If Umbrella Corps had the controls of 6, I think I would enjoy it more.
Moving on, we have some minor Remake 2 news. The director of the original game, Hideki Kamiya.
Was that the death mark?
So the original director of RE2, Hideki Kamiya, has been pestering Capcom producer Jun Takuchi for updates on the project because he gave it his full blessing. So he's apparently said that they know that the director of the remake and is confident the game will be in good hands. Whilst he won't reveal who this director is, he cryptically confirmed it was an individual who joined Capcom the same time as him, and that's led to people speculating that it's Kazunori Kaidoi, the director behind Mega Man Legends. So there we go, I don't know. We wait with bated breath with Remake.
The thing is, Kamiya doing that, it's all well and good, but it's not Kamiya. Kamiya's one of, gaming's most beloved directors these days. Some of the projects he's done, like Akami and things like that, are fucking amazing. Just this fucking project's going to kill me. I asked him about the remake, and that's what got blocked on Twitter from him. I was trying to get a quote for the podcast, and I just said, what's your feeling about someone else doing Resident Evil 2 remake, and he fucking blocked me.
You could speculate to the to the ends of the earth, but we haven't even seen a single video, or we don't have a lot of information about it at all. Almost a guarantee is that Fourth Survivor will be DLC paid DLC. And then, do you want to play Fourth Survivor with a lump of tofu? Sure. That's another £5, please. Why? £5 for the skin. I do think Wesker's going to be in it. Because why wouldn't they not put him in some manner? Whether he's actually in Raccoon City, I don't know. But has it ever been confirmed that he's not in there?
No, but it's not.
It's true.
It's ambiguous.
There's a stronger hint in one of the Chronicles games, isn't there?
He's not in Raccoon City, no.
He's at one of his control desks.
One of my biggest fears, though, is that they're going to do like a beginning style scenario where Wesker's running around the RPD like hours after Claire and Leon have left.
I hope they do a proper Fourth Survivor, because the thing with Fourth Survivor, it kind of kicks off halfway. He's already got the sample. It'd be nice to know how he gets the sample.
Yeah, they could do with answering the question of what he's been doing for a week.
Exactly. There's a lot that you could do, a kind of like a prelude.
They'd have to show him surviving for that week rather than just being knocked out for the week. That doesn't make any sense. It's never made any sense.
I don't like retcons as a thing, but I wouldn't. That would be one retcon. If they redated that, I don't think we'd all be that upset. September 30th, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
It's ridiculous, and he's been in there a week in the sewers.
But there's all kinds of problems, isn't there? Because Wesker's report says he got the G virus from the sample Leon threw away.
Well, that would tie in as well, wouldn't it?
That was one good thing Darkseid changed. Darkseid changed it to he picked it up from the lab.
But then I think Archives 1 said that he got it directly off Birkin.
Which Operation Raccoon City depicts. Yeah, you never thought I'd fucking say that, did you?
I do. I mean, the idealist in us would like to think that play through the Outbreak games and link it in even better. That brings us nicely onto Outbreak 2, kind of. Resident Evil 7 producer Kawada Masao has been interviewed by Famitsu and confirmed that other than Resident Evil 7 Remake 2 and Umbrella Corps, there is another Resident Evil title in the works.
They're due to announce it before the end of the year, aren't they?
Yeah.
Was that September?
I bet, yeah.
Fingers crossed, Outbreak.
Which is interesting because that thing, which we'll probably end up talking about during the 7 discussion, has a calendar with September in the background.
Oh, I like that.
Could be Umbrella Corps too.
Already? I still want to say, remember that this was the first title they announced for the 20th anniversary was Umbrella Corps.
It doesn't even have fucking music. Even if the levels are classic music, I would like it more. But a fucking game.
Quiet. It's a great game.
We've broken him.
Right, site news. We have some site news. Project Umbrella is back open for business, and if you have an urgent desire to sign up, you can. Somehow the bugs have been fixed, and we found a new hamster to keep the server alive, which is going around his little wheel. So you can sign up to Project Umbrella and become a member on our forums and chat. Great! Right, that concludes the site news and all the news. We'll now turn our attentions to the teaser Resident Evil 7.
Who? Where did you find this guy?
Give me a break, Pete.
Hey, I only work with professionals. Speaking of which, make sure the sound is right this time. I don't want a repeat of Amarillo.
That was 2 fucking years ago.
I don't do ADR. This new guy? I'm not feeling it.
Again?
Just don't be surprised if we have to make a change. New plan. We do a walkthrough of the inside first, then we shoot the intro.
Just like we always do. Just try to say the show's name this time, okay?
No problem. Tonight on Sewer Gators, another worthless fucking shithole. Happy?
Ecstatic.
Are we rolling? Alright, let's go.
Get out of the way.
It's locked.
After you.
So, why are we in hell this time?
Do you ever prep?
What's the prep? Shitty house, spooky sounds? Ooh, is it haunted? Fuck me. I was an anchor, you know?
Weekend sub, Pete. Not anchor.
What's that?
Nothing.
What's the story, Andre?
Abandoned farmhouse, missing family, foul play suspected. The usual.
How long did you say this place has been abandoned?
3 years.
Clancy, get a shot of this. Let's make a great cutaway. So, Hillbilly Joe and his family go missing.
Not hillbillies, the Bakers. Jack and Marguerite Baker. And they were quiet, not backward. A lot of bad rumors about their son, Lucas. Bad seed, apparently.
So, as we know, chaps, this was a pleasant surprise at E3, but I think the subsequent announcement that this is not really Resident Evil 7, but more of a tech demo, I personally think that took the shine off what I thought was quite a good little demo. I myself has not played it. I have not yet upgraded to PlayStation 4. So, in terms of first impressions, I want to pass the buck swiftly over to Batman, who very much has played the game to death. And what was your views on the game, or demo, should I say?
Well, I was quietly impressed. I think the switch to first person obviously is a very daring move for a numbered title, but at the same time it's obviously a different direction to anything they've done before in terms of getting away from Resident Evil 6. I mean, it's completely unrelatable to Resident Evil 6, which I think is what everyone wanted. The clear horror direction is obviously a good move, and the demo itself, while very short, I don't know, because it's so early to tell. There's very little in there. You can't even really guess at what's happening, but I'm quietly impressed. It's obviously going to be a much smaller, more contained story, and they've upped the horror factor. My only worry is that it's obviously going to be fully compatible with virtual reality, and I'm hoping they've not designed the whole game around that, hoping that's what's going to make it a success, because they've tried that before with Outbreak. We've talked before about how Outbreak was way ahead of its time with the online element, and I'm hoping the same doesn't apply here. I'm hoping they've not made it into first person purely for the sake of virtual reality.
Romby?
I fell asleep before the Sony conference, and that was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon here, because I'd stayed up for the Microsoft one. And I woke up and I literally just missed the trailer. Like, I woke up just after it played. And so I had no idea what was going to have been on at all. I just continued to watch, and I was like, oh, what if it's come beforehand? I'll catch up on afterwards. And then, of course, I started seeing these messages going, oh my god, 7, oh my god. So I quickly caught up on what I'd seen. And then, of course, the demo announcement came out around the same time. I had trouble getting the demo, and it still hasn't actually been released to the New Zealand store. There's a classification issue, so I had to use the UK account to get it. And the demo on first look I was really impressed by. It does obviously feel a lot comparable to PT and other first person kind of horror walking sims, but that also comes with its pitfalls about replays. It could be like one of those games that's really a one and done deal. Like, replaying it can be quite a struggle. There's probably more to say, but I'll kind of let other people talk about it first, I think.
Stars?
I think it's pretty fabulous. I thought the announcement was masterfully done. I thought the actual trailer that has been released is really fucking good. And the demo itself is fine. It's very short. There's not that much to it. And, people are still debating aspects of it, although Capcom have come out this week to say be patient. But I think in terms of establishing a mood, I think it does it rather fabulously. And again, like I said when we were discussing 5 a few moments ago, I'm not afraid of change. And I'm really, really interested to see what they've got in store. And the trailer shows there's a lot more beyond the demo. I mean, it shows a police car in an urban environment. So for all these people that are thinking, it's just going to be an isolated game in a haunted house, I think there's a lot more to it, and I think they're keeping their cards very close to their chests. It's very interesting.
I would say, before we ask George for his opinion, I would say what you've said, Sean, about going in a different direction. I mean, first person obviously isn't completely alien to the Resident Evil universe. Yes, for a numbered title, but I don't think it's a huge jump. And I think it may work. So, George, what did you think? Brief impressions.
I knew you were going to use the word brief before I opened my mouth. If you asked me this question when we should have all been organised enough to do the podcast 2 weeks ago, like right after it broke, I'd probably give a different answer, because I think now looking back, I'm almost looking at it with like changed tinted spectacles. I got so excited for it afterwards. I wasn't expecting that. I know there were rumours about it and the VR kitchen thing. When RE7 came up at the end, I was just like, yes, there's just so much joy attached to the fact that all of that gameplay that we saw, and my view was very much as Stars just expressed his, at the time. But now looking back, I know these are sort of can be lazy criticisms, but I think it is generally very tropey, and there isn't a lot of originality in it. It's very original and unique for Resident Evil, but just in terms of what's already been done, I think they've just taken a lot of things, tropes and themes from The Ring and from Blair Witch Project and obviously from PT. But I can almost overlook that, just the bravery and the freshness that this could bring, this complete change up.
No, that's always encouraging. I mean, from my point of view, I like George, were completely blown away that Capcom have seemingly listened to us, which I find quite incredible. I love the trailer. I like the little glimpses of things you're not quite sure you get. There's like the floating leeches. I like the hints of creatures. You see like the bloodied hands, and I think you said, I think we spoke about it. You said it may as well have been out of the 80s. Set in the 1980s. It seemed very
it was very retro, wasn't it? Like old style telephones and VCRs. Yeah.
But it was good. Mr. Spencer, what are your brief impressions of the Resident Evil 7 demo?
Well, it's very, very different to what we've come to expect over the years. Because I was watching it at E3, a lot of us were, and when I first started seeing it, I bet our mind was sort of going, could this be? I mean, it can't be, because the gameplay is so radically different. It can't be. But yeah, looks very different, I was going to say. Yeah. Not what I was expecting.
So if we focus initially on the kind of horror element within the demo, I said a minute ago, it kind of has this retro feel. Do you think there's been an purpose intention to try and drum up support, to try and get the fan base talking again?
They've just tried to ram it down our throats, haven't they? That they are definitely trying to return it to horror. I think we can safely say there's not going to be any 50-foot tall Lord of the Rings trolls or robot Salazars or people who mutate ridiculously in a matter of seconds. I think what Capcom have shown us with this demo is that they are going for realism, and if the game feels realistic, then that's where the horror factor comes from, because it's believable. Yeah. I mean, the demo itself is full of cliches. There's hanging little voodoo dolls, there's creaking doors, there's everything you'd come to expect from like an 80s horror. I think that's the whole purpose of this demo. They're just wanting us to know that it's going to be horror. It's not going to be horror for the first 10 minutes, then action. It's going to be horror.
They're scaling it down as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Scaling it back.
I like the fact that they've said that, there's not going to be any heroes in it. You are, a completely non-exceptional person, just basically trying to survive. That's all you are. And
no boulder smashing.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, you bring up the boulder, but that's been mainly used. Capcom themselves have been promoting that in the 5 release this week.
HD. Yeah.
So that's how sort of ridiculous that sequence has become. And the fact that, you've gone from Chris Redfield heroically punching a boulder into a lava whilst fighting a ridiculous Wesker in a volcano to wielding an axe trying to survive against a hillbilly in a Southern American home.
Yes, it kind of looked a bit like the film Wrong Turn.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
The idea of having it on an isolated plantation farm is a cracking idea as well.
Oh, it could be really fucking scary. That could. Yeah. It could be really fucking horrible.
So you said it was on like a plantation farm, and I had this little theory that's probably not even right. But when you think of plantation farm, you think of somewhere in like, the southern states of America somewhere, that kind of area, like sort of, Alabama or Tennessee, places like that. And I'm thinking, right, who in the Resident Evil series had a southern drawl? Derek Simmons. Right? And then they also say, welcome to the family. What if the family is not really like... What if it's a family in a traditional sense? I don't know where I'm going with this, but I'm trying to piece together.
Do you think they'll go to all this trouble to distance themselves from the Mesavari 6 to then directly link it with a reference to a main character?
Yeah, but the family are like an unresolved plot line. There's no harm in taking a plot line like that and scaling it back and making
I'm talking more in terms of Simmons, but... Yeah,
there's no harm in just sort of taking a... I mean, yeah, RE6 was a disaster, but there's no harm in just sort of taking a part of it and going, right, here's the one little plot line, little thread.
They have to own the plot of Resident Evil 6 as part of the canon. I mean, they've not shied away from saying that while this game through the demo looks unrelated, it is related, and people will find out how it's related to the main series. And obviously, there's the single link that we clearly see in the demo as well with the photograph. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. There's no reason not to.
A lot of people criticised as well playing it. They said, it doesn't feel like Resident Evil. which I think is a bit harsh considering the demo's literally 5 minutes long and you don't really get anything in terms of plot. But something as simple, like you mentioned, that picture of the helicopter with the Umbrella logo. As soon as you see that, it brings everything rushing back up to the surface again. And I think the final game will have plenty of connections to the overall lore.
I'm really interested to see, because they've said this demo is not related to the main game, but the thing is about the opening and ending scene are actually directly from the Kitchen VR demo, and there's actually more to it that we didn't see in regards to the way it ends with the woman's face on the screen. In the Kitchen demo, it actually continued where she grabbed a knife and eventually stabbed the person who ends up being the camera guy, which isn't shown, but that was part of the Kitchen demo itself that was released at E3 last year, not this one, but the previous year. So it's interesting that there's part of the demo that doesn't exist, and whether or not that's going to eventually be added to the demo or come out in another form, I'm interested to know, and then obviously if that has any actual impact on the story at all.
I know who you are.
Who are you?
Memories hold the truth. Don't let appearances mislead you.
I may be a bit old school in this, but I kind of said it in a kind of introduction. It's all well and good releasing this, but I'm slightly concerned as to what is the point. If this isn't going to be in the game...
I think it's canon. I just think it'll not be featured in the game, but it's like a playable prologue, if you like.
Yeah, I think the location of the house itself will be in the game.
I think all the events of the demo will be in the game. What they'll probably do is you'll probably be someone who finds the corpse of the person you played in the demo or something like that. It'll be very loosely connected.
I'm pretty sure they said that the location in the demo isn't in the game.
Right. Because it's in the trailer, isn't it?
It is in the trailer, but this is the thing, is the trailer, all footage from the final game was the trailer footage from the demo and the game, just because they were selling the demo. But my thought is, and I've said this to a couple other people, is just that the idea that perhaps they're looking at this in a kinship to the original game, whereas if you think about the hikers missing in the woods brought the STARS team into the forest, people missing in the this plantation area may bring in someone who's looking for someone like a family member or some sort of like very low-key private detective or someone who hasn't got this massive amount of skills but it could be easily justified.
Also, I think that the main point of this is because there's been such a change out in style and gameplay, because when we were discussing this for another podcast, I was mindful that we might be looking too deep into it. I mean, at one point we were discussing the number of plates on the table and the fact that, you know, if there was Mr. and Mrs. Baker and their son, then perhaps their son, you play as the son, because if, you know, these are just the plates that belong to just a couple that are in this house. I think too much can be read into it, and initially I was very disappointed when I heard that news. Romby mentioned that this house wouldn't be in the game, but then more considered thinking, well, perhaps very little will make it, and this is more Capcom, you know, almost at the time dipping their toe in the water and seeing fan reaction and seeing if there is going to be a huge backlash. And obviously we've got that release date's already set in stone, but how much of the remaining percentage of the game that hasn't been developed, you know, that could go in a different direction depending on what that fan reaction was. So I think it was more about, you know, the style rather than anything quite significant making it to the main game.
But even if this house isn't in the final game, whatever is, you know, the location's going to be very, very similar. The decor, the sort of dilapidated 80s style is going to be there. And one of the benefits from first person, I suppose, is being able to scrutinise all the details close up, you know, more than we've ever done it before. Like, I know George is a big fan of like examining the paintings in Remake and that, but with first person, obviously, we can literally go right up to them and look at every detail.
I was going to say that's my only drawback. Like, in detail, visually, it's really good, but there's not a lot to actually examine or look up so far, and I'm really hoping that the final game maybe just has a little bit more of that element.
There'd have to be, because I think one of the things in the, I think it was Eurogamer review mentioned that if you're going to have this PT style, slow, repeated sort of exploration, you need to have things to look at.
Yes. Again, I'd like, I think, even if it's first person and you get to have much better looks at these things than you've ever done before, I wouldn't still mind there being the action button. So you can, you know, you see the picture, you can look great at it, but then, you know, you can't read the description or something like that. You know, this picture looks a bit funny. Or, you know, something like that. As we've often said on this podcast, little things like that really do add to it.
Well, it sets the tone. So I think some of the descriptions in Remake this woman looks distressed, or that this person has a sinister look, or even there's a painting that's been ripped out, and you just think about the mystery. You never know. There's lots of those things about remaking the mansion that actually don't really make sense. Did Rombi ask why there were all those stars stories in the Residence, the stars cuttings, and just little things like that make you think, oh, who's done that, and why was that terminal only recently used?
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see if they did it a different style. If you could hear, once we know the characters, like an inner monologue rather than text on a screen. That would be kind of an interesting way of doing it.
Oh, I'd love audio files.
Well,
yeah.
I think one of the strongest aspects of this demo was the VHS tape and the playable flashback.
That was masterwork.
Yeah, I thought that was really, really good. And I'm assuming the final game will have more of these tapes, because the files in Resident Evil have always been one of the strongest points, and that's taken it to the next level. Especially if the flashbacks influence what happens later on when you play it in present day.
That was massively clever, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When you can actually affect present day through what you do in the flashback. It's like an advanced version of like the zapping system from Resident Evil 2. When you did something in Leon's campaign that directly affected players, it was, it's like an extension of that. And, as a storytelling mechanic, could be really cool.
Isn't that technically like time travel then, or something? Because if you're zipping back and forth between these characters.
Well, it's sort of an extension of what George was saying. Like George said, in previous games you could go up to a bookshelf and it would say, someone has evidently been searching through here recently. Whereas if you watch it through these tapes, you get to see exactly what happened, which I think is quite clever.
Yeah.
My concern with, I say minor concern, is a trivial concern. If you do get to go play these flashbacks, then whilst you have quite a personal game, what would then be almost like the canon version of events? Would it be somewhat difficult to say, well, I got this, which is the right?
It's always going to be the same. I mean, essentially, it's like a puzzle. To be able to progress, you have to have seen what was in the tape that allows you to get past. So the way it works in the demo, essentially, you get a lockpick that allows you to access a drawer.
Yeah.
And there are other things that you find a handle under the fireplace that, unless you know it's there, you can't look for it. You wouldn't look for it. But having seen it in the VHS, you can use it, and you can then, when you replay it, you can opt to use that trigger straight away. And that's not time travel, that's just information. It's always there, it's just how it was originally shown. And so it can't change. It's not like, in order to progress, you're going to have to pull that handle.
Yeah.
My only issue, there's twofold issue. One is that I think I read a developer interview where they said there's an element of the demo that was a gameplay trial, and they're not really sure if it's going to be in the final or isn't going to be in the final product. I'm really hoping it's not the VHS thing, because I think that is really good. And secondly, the thing that I mentioned early on, which is the unfortunate part of it, the VHS bit that I don't like, is the fact that if you replay the demo, you have to go through the whole dialogue system, and you have to wait for the characters to play out their scenes. There's no way, which in my sense would be brilliant, a fast forward option, because it's a VHS tape. You should be able to fast forward or rewind it, and if that's the case, then it only adds more interest and depth to perhaps seeing stuff that you haven't seen, and chances of replaying the same VHS tape more than once in order to see something different.
You could stop the tape though, couldn't you, in the demo?
I think that's about all you can do.
Yeah.
You can't fast forward, which would be great. And there's an invisible wall section when you get to the kitchen, and the guy has to disappear. The sound guy or producer guy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You can't literally get past an invisible wall, and it's kind of starts to show the seams of the demo. But
do you think the events of that flashback tie into the game at all? Or do we think that was just an experiment for the demo? That this sort of ghost hunting team or whatever it was?
I think, much like I said before, personally, about the idea it might be a catalyst for missing people.
I think the demo will feature in the game in some way, even if it's just a throwaway file.
It seems a lot of effort just to have it as a test.
Because the thing is, it's become a bit of a phenomenon. If anyone signed up to the Ambassador program that they launched the same day they announced 7, everyone received an email this week to say the dummy finger, which has driven the internet mad over the last 2 weeks, will have a feature in the future. And a lot of people have noted how the first thing that happens when you launch the demo is it creates a save file. Why would it create a save file if you're just playing a demo?
I think someone else made a point along those lines that there are more inventory slots than you need.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of that's from the main game itself, and maybe the axe is just to show that the main game will have a combat system of sorts. But I wouldn't be surprised if, because one of the theories is the reason why it's only available on the PS4 at the minute is because the PS4 is generally a closed system in terms of the fact that it's not been hacked or broken yet. Whereas if they launched the demo on a PC, it would have been data mined by now.
Yeah.
And people would have found every trigger that is in the demo and things like that. And go back to when like the Resident Evil 5 demo came out on the 360 and it got data mined and people found the boss battle list and everything like that. And if you remember, REH leaked the entire fucking thing on the front page.
I was going to say, you've just actually triggered something I was thinking about. So, as I said earlier in the news section, there's that same email from the ambassador thing has a calendar of September in the back behind the finger.
Oh, isn't it? Oh, I'll have a look at that.
Yeah.
I've got that email.
If you ever look at the email, look at the picture, and you can see the calendar it's sitting on is September. So my thoughts are that at TGS they're going to show another trailer, and there's going to be some sort of update to the demo for people who have got it. But my thoughts are the reason why it's on PS4, why it's a PS Plus thing, is the VR aspect of it is PlayStation only. It's only going to be supported. The other versions won't have any VR support. They're making it specifically the VR for the VR on PlayStation. So I'm thinking the release date for the PlayStation VR is in October. So I figure that there's going to be an update with either more content, and also for people who end up buying the VR in October, they'll be able to try the demo in VR the following month. That's my theory, and it'll be on the show floor at Tokyo Game Show.
That makes complete sense.
I can't believe I've just seen it now. I'm just looking at the picture. Yeah, I can't believe I missed the September. It's so obvious.
So that's my theory on it. Whether or not it's true, it could be completely off base, and it ends up being completely something different because it's Capcom and they completely do this sometimes. But that's my theory. I mean, it's so close to being released. Obviously,
well, that's what I was going to say. But when you mentioned about it being on the show floor, yeah, it's a matter of months before release. So yeah,
I think we mentioned earlier about this, the VR element. I hope it is. I hope it's still very much playable and a good game without the need for the virtual reality.
Because VR just makes you feel sick.
Yeah.
Well, the demo plays fine.
People have tested it, and
I was going to say the exact same thing. The E3 feedback seemed to be a lot of people who don't even get motion sickness said that they got sick playing this. There's something not quite. A lot of theories that there's something about the camera to body movement that throws people off quite a bit, because I think you can control the camera independently of your head movement. And people are looking at stuff and moving away from it at the same time, and it's disorienting and making people sick. So whether or not that's something they have to fix or will fix, I'm not sure.
Dragon's Lair, that's one for the teenagers. I've been trying to think since it was announced, RE7, what's the game I'm thinking of that was launched and had everything to do with the technical ability, and it was a complete revolution in what it was, but it ended up with having absolutely no gameplay at all. It was stunning to look at. I don't know if anyone knows the game I'm referring to.
It's like a cartoon, wasn't it?
Yeah, the cartoon, Dragon's Lair.
Animated,
I remember seeing it at Funfair. There was like this huge crowd around an arcade, and I was like, what is this fuss about? And tried to get through the crowd, all like twice as big as I was about 9 or something at the time, and getting to see it. And I just, the wonderment of what was on the screen, but no, it was completely unplayable, and I just worry if this is what this is going to be. It's very much a gimmick in terms of the VR, or if without the VR, it's just a completely broken game that can look at it. It looks very pretty, but there's no gameplay.
No, I think it'll be fine. I mean, I played the demo extensively, and to me, people talk about things like PT and Outlast, but for me, it played almost exactly like Condemned Criminal Origins, which was a launch game for the Xbox 360.
Sorry for interrupting. I think it's going to be a bit like Alien Isolation, where that has a VR option. You can play it in VR, you'll feel sick from it, but it's perfectly playable without VR. And I think they're going for the same approach.
I'm hoping it is a lot like Alien Isolation. If they capture just an ounce of the horror that game had, fucking hell.
I was going to just say, I think Romby may have mentioned it, that the problem with replayability when you have that issue. I know Bats is a big fan of that game, but did you find that constantly not being on the run, certainly the first section with the alien is fantastic to begin with, but I kind of found myself actually not playing Alien Isolation as much as I thought I would.
It's a frustrating game because the alien's pretty much shackled to you. You have to sort of use your imagination and think it could be anywhere, but because of the game mechanics, the alien is never more than really 20 or 30 metres away. But it all depends on how noisy you are, obviously.
I mean, I just thought that once you got the flamethrower and you could challenge it a bit, it was amazing to see the AI take centre stage. Maybe aspects of Resident Evil 7 will use this, but you could use the flamethrower to fight the alien back, but eventually it would just get so fucking pissed off.
Yeah.
And it would just kill you.
It was the same when you hid in lockers. It would learn. So whenever it came out and it couldn't find you, it would literally go around and open every locker it could find.
Now you imagine a Resident Evil game that uses those kind of mechanics.
Yeah.
Fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
And then imagine playing Resident Evil 3 with a nemesis that actually learned your trait.
That seems like that idea of doing that where there's something hunting you and there's a sole enemy, which isn't like people have made those. We were talking about it before as well. The fact that the tropes are there and stuff. There is that Texas Chainsaw Massacre-esque element to it as well, and it's essentially a type of that we've had chainsaw wielding enemies in the past. It's that element of just a single person that can potentially pop out. My only concern with the VR element, they started this last year, obviously, well, they've obviously been working on it for a couple of years, but last year was the kitchen demo, and which tells me there was a focus on VR, and whether or not that took precedence over the game as well is the only other bit of that VR concern I had.
I know who you are.
Who are you?
You will have to say goodbye eventually. But will you be ready?
I was just thinking about the trailer showing what appears to be zombie-type creatures, and I wonder if that is that shot of you being dragged, or someone's being dragged on the floor by almost like a big muscular, almost like a big man Magini-type player. I wonder if he would take that role as being the...
Well, no, that guy is the guy who punches you in the face in the demo. He just says, well, family. Yeah. He's actually carrying the woman who stabs you or kills you in the last cutscene over his shoulder.
Oh, right.
If you look at a screenshot of him, he looks straight out of Resident Evil 4. If you didn't know it was Resident Evil 7, you'd think he was just Ganado.
He looks like Walter White from Breaking Bad.
Yeah. But in Ganado form.
Yeah. He's all blooded and his eyes are barely open.
We haven't got an indication as to what kind of creatures these are yet, or what infection.
The sort of theory I've seen that takes shape is the fact that this is an old, disused testing area for Umbrella, and that the photo is them from on high, in a helicopter, taking photos of the area. And, this family is just trapped in the middle of this...
Set in 2017.
But it seems quite isolated, that whole idea of old technology, people missing for a while. It does seem like there is quite a big isolation factor to it.
Personally, I don't think the family from Resident Evil 6 is involved. I think that reference is to the family who lived at this particular house, and they're obviously central to the plot. And I'm sure you're all familiar with the X-Files episode Home with the Peacock family. But someone did like a comparison between Resident Evil 7 and shots from that, and some of the shots are lifted pretty much straight out of X-Files, like the portrait of the family on the wall and the big American car parked outside the house. It's literally lifted straight out of that episode.
What a horrible but brilliant episode that was. Fucking, I've never been so unsettled the first time I saw that episode.
That's the thing about this new family, whatever it's called in RE7, whoever this family are, they like to stick to their own, don't they? See the big-eared boys on farms.
Yeah, that's what it probably is. I would say that maybe we're survivors of some experiment that Umbrella did long ago, and they have resorted to things like cannibalism and incest.
I just wonder what experiments Umbrella would have done that would have resulted in such effectively intelligent BOWs.
Well, no, because we've not seen any BOWs yet. We've just seen a blooded guy. That's it.
Yeah, but you're assuming he's infected with something.
Well, he's maybe not infected with something. He's maybe just survived whatever the...
Yeah.
Whatever
I'm not seeing him as a BOW. Although the trailer does show, it shows you things breaking down on, a molecular level. Things start to dissolve.
Rotting and dissolving, yeah.
I have a theory, though, about this family. I reckon that, at the end where it sort of goes, welcome to the family, what if that's how their family, quote-unquote, reproduces? They don't do it in the traditional sense, because they're all probably, what's the one I'm looking for here? Well, you can't have children. You're infertile. Sterile, that's it. From, inbreeding and such. So they basically kidnap people from outside, ideally women, and just bring them in and use them to try and, extend the bloodline more.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. And maybe that's what the female ghost you see in the trailer, this sort of silhouette of a woman, plays quite prominently in the posters and the trailer. And obviously you see this ghost of this woman, don't you? I think you can see her in 7 different locations.
But only in the VHS tape.
Yeah.
That is worth mentioning, that it could all be a trick.
Is there, it does seem a bit of a... If it is not the family from RE6, I don't know the RE6 files that well. Is there any way that they could be linked? In the sense that, can the RE6 files be interpreted in such a way that they're not quite so Patriot-esque?
They're open enough that they could interpret it however they want. Look at the things Revelations 2 did in terms of tying in. If you've got a writer who's clever enough to make it happen, look at 5. You know, it's fucking hell that they managed to make Jill's infection from Resident Evil 3 work in terms of the storyline to that game. The only thing I would say is this is the first time a Western writer's come along, and I just can't imagine Capcom would have brought a Western writer on who's already acclaimed for doing things like Spec Ops and saying, here, these are the Resident Evil 6 references you must get into the game.
Yeah, I don't think anything from Resident Evil 6 will be in this, because they're just wanting to distance themselves from it. I mean, it could work, because the family was very, very ambiguous. We learned almost nothing about them. It was all about Simmons, really. But they were essentially the government behind the government. They had access to unparalleled wealth. You know, they had facilities all across the globe. So you've got to ask, what would they want with an abandoned plantation farm in Louisiana or wherever it is?
There's another X-Files parallel right there. The Syndicate.
Yeah.
They were basically the Syndicate from X-Files, the family were.
Yeah.
I just wonder, because the revelations of the family in RE6 have been so negative. It's just like, oh, do we really need, as you say, government of the government?
Conspiracy theory concept, yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Everything.
But actually, really.
If Resident Evil 5 introduced Alex Wesker and Revelations 2 cleared that up, then I wouldn't be surprised if, Res 6 introduced the family and Revelations 3 or clear that one.
It might be something a lot simpler. It could be like a playable version of essentially what happened to George Trevor. You know, when Spencer let him escape from his cell, knowing the only place he'd end up was by his gravestone. It could be something similar to that in many regards. It's not a biohazard outbreak per se, it's just someone, for whatever reason, has been taken to this house and you're literally just trying to get the hell out of there.
I know who you are.
Who are you?
You have the power to choose, but the outcome of that choice may not be what you expect.
Actually, on that note, I just want to bring something out that just popped in my head, and I didn't actually think about it till now. So there's obviously a time difference between the VHS and the person you're playing as in the demo, who we don't actually know who it is. But the house hasn't changed drastically, but there are, like, in that lobby area that's got the front door that you try to escape out of, there's all of a sudden, like, mutilated cattle or horses or something just lying around, and like there are some changes that are just slightly even more disturbing than what's already in the house in the VHS tape that have happened. There's obviously something more to it.
One thing we we'll come on to is there's obviously differences between the trailer that was released sort of officially and the actual, what was showcased when it was debuted at E3, where we got more of a kind of like a film montage as well attached to that. And there were some images. I mean, maybe I was attaching too much importance to it because more would have been made of this guy in the wheelchair, and it may seem too easy to make references to Spencer, but I mean, looking up to a close-up of it, it's very, very similar. Not that I'm expecting it to be. I don't know if anyone else noticed kind of some quite significant images that weren't in the gameplay that came in that trailer that we saw at E3.
Well, hey, the guy in the wheelchair is the real Wesker. That the Res 5 Wesker was a clone Wesker.
I wouldn't mind it being the real Wesker, i.e. Dr. Wesker.
No.
Yeah, I was going to say that of the Wesker children.
Nick, you just fucking seriously saved yourself in a sentence there. Because you were about to get unleashed.
Yeah, in terms of the Wesker Children program, there would have been an initial father.
I just think we need to just leave the Wesker stuff alone. We've gone from his son to his sister, and now potentially his fucking clone. We just need a game that doesn't have Wesker in it. If it has to be Spencer, yeah, why not? It can always be a flashback. Because if Umbrella were doing stuff here in the 80s, fair enough, have Spencer in it, but we don't need Dr. Wesker, I don't think. Not in this.
No, and of course Alex Wesker is still with us in child form.
Oh, obviously the little girl is Natalia as well. It's bollocks.
No, I've done a close-up. She's slightly taller.
There's a picture of a girl on the wall. It's obviously Rebecca. It's just people are just pulling this stuff out their ass.
Wouldn't it be amazing?
This is nothing new. This is nothing new.
I know it isn't. Yeah, you're right.
If the guy in the wheelchair is Spencer in a flashback, wouldn't it be the most amazing thing if this was the house that Spencer grew up in?
He grew up in the UK. He was British.
Oh, fuck
yeah. He was British, wasn't he? This is in America.
Yeah, but he was rich. He had houses all over the place. The Lost in Nightmares mansion, he was living in that in the 1950s.
Why would he be in a wheelchair, though?
Well, obviously the flashback's not going to be in the 50s, but he's sure.
I mean, I will say, it does look a lot like Spencer in the wheelchair.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
But then it's funny because, like, the scribbled out girl face on the trailer. Look, someone superimposed an image of Jill.
Yes. Yeah.
and it matches too well. It really does match. I don't want it to be because I don't want any of the original casting, but I can't deny it does match really well.
Quick, someone asked Julia Voth has she been approached for this game.
Maybe it's just a placeholder, they just put it in.
Maybe
or an Easter egg.
Could we be looking too far back? Could it not be Neo Umbrella?
Oh, for fuck's sake. The main character in this game, Nick, is Tyler Hamilton.
Yeah.
He's the guy in the
Ark
wheelchair.
Thompson. I'm going for Ark Thompson.
It's Tyler Hamilton as an old man in a wheelchair, and he went a bit mental after all the stuff happened in Confidential Report. And...
Maybe this is Vincent Goldman's mother's house.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Oh god, what if it's his mother in the wheelchair?
I would die. That would be the best thing ever. Oh my god.
It really would.
And the new trailer for RE7 will be a flashback to Survivor. Remember the phone call?
And
there's going to be a flashback.
And then they announce a Survivor remake that you can download that day.
Imagine that in a flashback scene with Vincent Mother's house, and you're walking past this door, and all you hear is the phone call in the background going, "It's your mother here."
The phone call in the demo, maybe it is Vincent's mother.
Yes!
Well, that leads us on, because so many people are saying that's Ada.
Oh,
and
because she's female.
Yeah, I don't think it is at all.
So this is a good point to ask everyone, I guess. On that same mindset, what does everyone think? They've obviously come up with this announcement that, along with 7, that this idea of all the games are going to be different genres. Umbrella Corps is like action for the action fans. This is going to be horror for the horror fans, etc. Does everyone think this is a good idea? Splitting all these games into different genres in order to please everyone?
For me, that's nothing new. They've done this for the last 15 years.
But now they're making it official.
Well, yeah, but then I think they made that official back in 2000 when they had Survivor. If you were, if you like your light gun games, there's Survivor. If you like your online games, here's Outbreak.
But these were all experiments. This is the thing. Like, so Survivor obviously came from the idea that they did first person because they couldn't do that for the original game on the PS1, but they managed to do so. And it's still realistically a traditional PlayStation Resident Evil experience, albeit from first person. Outbreak was because they had a network adapter and wanted to do an online game. That was the core reason for it, and it still plays like a traditional game. Like, these aren't massive differences, they're just features. That's like saying the VR in this one is the big difference, and that all games going forwards are going to be VR or not. So it's just something they've decided is the gameplay. But this is a bigger difference. This is literally saying we are going to release different types of Resident Evil games consistently because we're going to market them to the different fan bases. So instead of having a big mess of an event like Resident Evil 6 where they're trying to be 7 different games in one, we are literally going to make a specific game for a specific audience. That's a much different statement.
I don't think that's a bad thing, though. Because then at least...
You know where you are at the beginning straight away.
Yeah, if you're getting a numbered title, you know what you're going to get. Because the problem with 6 was it was sold as the game that would appeal to everybody.
I can see the problem already, which is stuff like Umbrella Corps, which you're obviously not a fan of, but you're still going to, if you're going to be a Resident Evil fan, you're still going to have to play it if you want the canon, or you just have to choose to ignore it, and that's my problem with this.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I would say in a different world I would really, really like Umbrella Corps if it was made better. Because the thing is, I enjoy those kind of games. I enjoy arena-based multiplayer shooters and things like that. My problem with Umbrella Corps is not the genre it chooses to be in, it's how badly it's made.
The quality of it.
You take Unreal, Epic Games, they made the Unreal Tournament series. In the last couple of years, they've remade Unreal Tournament from the ground up, and it is a similar sort of style, arena-based shooter with various team modes and things like that. It's free to play, and it's absolutely amazing. The polish and everything about it is wonderful, and that's where Umbrella Corps goes wrong. It's not made well. I love the more action-packed Resident Evil games. I don't mind them at all. I have a fucking lot of fun with 6. I think 6 is fun. 6 falters in many areas, but it's not its controls or necessarily its gameplay. Vehicle sections are diabolical, however.
I think Ori 5 had the nice balance between horror and action.
The
action was funny. I liked Ori 5. What are you talking about?
We've had that conversation.
I would like Umbrella Corps if it were just better made.
Where does it leave the Revelation series then? Because Revelation...
They'll still make that.
Yeah, they are the side stories, but they predominantly use the over-the-shoulder thing, which isn't it's fine.
But a lot of the interviews that they've had for the 20th anniversary, they said we specifically made Revelations 2 to cater for the horror fans. But, as much as it is quite a horror-y type game, it's still not a patch on the old...
I think that's superseded by the idea of this new game, because obviously they weren't going to reveal that earlier. So I think realistically this is really the horror game that they're going for, and now Revelations would probably be classed as something else. Maybe the non-action but more Resident Evil 4 focused one, where it's exploring action and a bit of horror as well. I don't know, maybe that's not something they'll ever progress on again. They'll not make another game in that style. They may make another Revelations, but it'll be in a different style again.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Revelations tag goes now.
No, I like it. I mean, as much as I have issues with the first Revelations, I really do. Revelations 2 was such a breath of fresh air, and I love it.
As far as I'm aware, I mean, they've got no reason not to. It sounds like it was reasonably successful. It was a low budget, it wasn't a high budget game, but it did reasonably okay. They haven't complained about it. They haven't said it's sold poorly or it's reviewed poorly or anything. It did reasonably well. I don't see any reason why another game of a similar budget and release schedule of like a monthly release thing that they're doing, the episodic thing.
I just wonder where it will fit into the new kind of scheme going forward then. If they're going to have one half of the franchise is going to be the action side of things, and then you've got the other side is going to be the horror thing. I would say Revelations 2 is slap bang in the middle.
This is the part of my confusion about this idea of announcing that they're going to make all these different games, because much as has been said, and it's correct, like previously they did make a bunch of different games just because, and they have made different ones, there's no doubt denying that, but they've made them just as a response to how markets have been or how fans have reacted or whatever that, or a technical reason. But yeah, Revelations is kind of almost redundant if you have one end extreme action and one end extreme horror. There doesn't seem to be a need for the middle ground, but maybe they recognise that as an entirely different fan base, that there is a third set that kind of want a little bit of both balanced in the way that Revelations 1 and 2 and Resident Evil 4 and to an extent 5 did as well.
Seems awfully complicated, Robbie.
Well, this is it. This is why I asked. The problem they said was like about this Resident Evil 7 is they can't please everyone, so we're trying our best to balance and make these things. But to me, by releasing so many different game types or splitting these games, because they are still trying to please everyone, they're trying to make sure they don't piss off any of the fans by saying, if you don't like horror but you like the action, you can have that. If you don't like the action, you wanted horror, you've got this one. Like, it's still trying to please everyone, and I don't know if it's a sensible move forward either. I'm just as fickle, well, obviously.
It's just that I said earlier in the week that I think, I tolerate Umbrella Corps because it's a spin-off. It's not supposed to be... In the same way you kind of tolerate... we love Dead Aim. I speak generally, but generally we do love Dead Aim. But at the same time, as a Resident Evil game, it's not brilliant.
I disagree. I can't believe you've mentioned the two in the same sentence.
Not in that way. It's a case of, I like the Dead Aim storyline, I like the gameplay, but at the heart, it's a light gun game where you're going around shooting, and it's less survival horror than even Survivor 1.
But why can't the series branch out to different genres?
No, I like that it does that, but if Dead Aim was Resident Evil 4, for example,
I'd have fucking adored it.
I don't know. For me,
this is the issue. Like, to me, this still smacks the same problem I've been talking about for fucking however long it's been. That they still don't know what the franchise really is anymore. It is everything and it is nothing, because there's so many different facets to it game-wise.
I would agree with that. So I just hope that the remake and the zero positive reception has taught them a few things.
I think so.
Nothing has pleased me more to do with the series in the last couple of years than how well received the remake was. I mean, God, we knew this because we played the GameCube version way back when, but so many people haven't played it. That's what surprised me the most. I just assumed if you're a fan of the series, you buy the console that the series is on, but a lot of people evidently didn't do that.
No, lots of people skipped it. They bought a PS2 because it was a more popular console, or B, originally it was announced that Resident Evil 4 was going on that console anyway. And so most people, if they bought another console previously, it was a Dreamcast because Code Veronica, and then they got burnt by it, so they weren't going to repeat the same mistake.
So to then see so many people enjoying Remake for the first time literally last year, where it was so good.
We've had a good couple of 12 months, haven't we? You've had Remake 0, Revelations 2. It's been like, yes, and then
Umbrella Corps comes out and just fucking ruins it. But this is my problem. This is my issue with Umbrella Corps, is that the Capcom were riding a really fucking good wave up until then, and then they fucked it. They should have just binned it. They should have binned it, because if they'd gone from Remake to Rev 2, 0, 6, 5 remasters, and then onto the 4 remasters, and 7's obviously on its way, there would really be no negativity. But Umbrella Corps has just shit on this sort of parade quite a bit, and it spoilt it.
I just think it goes back to your earlier point that this game was probably 80% complete maybe by Slant 6, and they were like, we've invested too much money, we need to make something back. Finish it off, put it out, forget about it.
Yeah, if they hadn't released it, we'd be still riding the sort of positivity of last year. The remasters are coming out. Everyone's looking forward to the 4 remaster to see if Capcom have done anything with it. I just simply expect it'll be the recent HD PC re-release.
Yes.
But, that's still better than nothing. It gives people the chance to play.
See, I've got my issue with it as well. It's just like, and I've said this to people, and it probably hasn't gone down very well, but it's just like, people rebuy the same game over and over again, and that's fine. But when Capcom puts out a lazy port, people still buy it, and then it just gives them more justification to do another lazy port rather than putting any effort into it. And when they put effort into it, we get stuff like the HD remaster, which they actually obviously did put effort into, partly because they had to make it work, but secondly, it made the environments work, and it made the whole game still work really well, upscaled. And I would really hope that they would spend time working on 4 to make sure it's not, because that second release on PCs is almost pointless. It doesn't really add a lot of detail or anything to the thing. I mean, the fan HD is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. It shows you how much work can actually be done in it. But if it ends up with the same kind of graphical issues and just lazy, why would you want to buy it again? Aside from replaying it on that console that you've got, there's no point. If you have it on PC, you've got one of already 2 copies.
The thing that's frustrating is the fact that Capcom can do it. I mean, if you look at the recent version of Devil May Cry 4 that came out on the PS4, they've added new modes, they've re-recorded a load of new dialogue, they've added new cutscenes to the game, there's new playable characters. So they do have it actually within their capacity to take an older game, retweak it, and make it worth selling again. I was saying to people the other day, wouldn't it have been amazing if the first time you boot up Resident Evil 5 on the PS4, you're actually denied the main game, and you actually have to play Lost in Nightmares first, before you can even get to the title screen or whatever.
We are deviating somewhat.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
We are deviating. So I'm going to cut you off there in a very polite manner.
That's fine.
As my duty as host. Interestingly, I think throughout for the past couple of years, I think I've been calling almost for a reboot of the series, because I think we kind of got to a point where I think Batman, you're saying that they don't really know where to go with the storyline. They can't really make it any bigger without it turning into Resident Evil, the movie, the game. And this, I mean, I never wanted a reboot per se, but the information we've got, the kind of feel, it does appear to be very much a reboot of the series. And I wonder if it's going to be a bit like maybe RE4. They're going to start with maybe a new virus. It's going to be the curse of the world or something like that. And
probably, but I think they're not discarding everything that's come before.
No, that's what I want.
If it is an RE4 style reboot, I'm really not bothered, because something needed to change.
I think we've got a good precedent for the idea that, well, I'm hopeful anyway, that perhaps with the way this kind of veiled reference to Umbrella and this kind of old style throwbacks and isolation, much like all the theories, there's a good reason to connect it back into very early. The thing that I keep getting is we're listening to fans and people want kind of more, because of the remaster of Resident Evil, like this idea of something that's very similar to that original game concept, the isolation, the horror, the tension, that I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see more of like an origin thing that ties back in to the earlier virus concepts more than the later stuff.
Yeah.
And so if it's not a new virus, it's definitely something along the lines of the research that was done originally into the viruses themselves. So that I could easily believe.
I think it's interesting as well that they seemingly they're taking a very Silent Hill route and having a very relatively ordinary person being, the main character. None of them are ever specially trained in Silent Hill. I think with the exception of is it Downpour? I don't know.
I mean, that's the thing I really loved about the earlier games, that even when you did have the stars, they were completely out their depth.
Yes.
And you still felt like you could have been a member. Rebecca was so green, herself. And even Chris and Jill was just quite sort of slim and skinny. Chris, wasn't the Chris we had in RE5. And Wesker was purposely throwing them out their depth. I think didn't he purposely go with Bravo Team initially because they were even more inexperienced than Alpha? And even with Leon in RE2, it was his first day on the job.
Yeah.
He was just an ordinary cop as well.
All that adds up, doesn't it? And I think that the whole package with RE1 was that even though you were technically an elite police unit, you did feel out of your depth. But that related down to camera angles, that related down to ammo, the kind of guns you got progressively through the game. I maintain the view that it's bloody difficult for modern games like RE7 to have the kind of over-the-shoulder camera, that third-person camera, and have that level of guns, because it's just too easy to get things like headshots. So it's interesting that they're kind of going down the Silent Hill route of just having an ordinary person who wouldn't, they've got to almost create that kind of, oh crap, he's rubbish, so he's going to pick up bottles, or he's going to pick up a crowbar that he finds, and he's going to use that. And
it's going to be interesting to see how literal Capcom are going with this being an everyday ordinary person, because I've noticed in the demo you can't go up to any mirrors, like all the mirrors are dirty or cracked, so you can never see your reflection. So I'm interested to see,
I think that might be just because of the person in the demo may not be the person from the final game. So
potentially, I just hope he's not going to be predominantly silent throughout. I hope he is his own character essentially.
This is whole part of a movement, I want to say, in game design right now as well, where people have gotten to the point where they're getting sick of being hand-holded on every game that they play, where in Resident Evil 6, where it's just constantly go to this location, this is your objective, this is where you're heading, linear, directed, telling you where to go, what to do. Whereas a lot more games are getting to this idea of having more obtuse puzzles, more exploration, and that's where all this kind of walking sims are going for. And in that respect, I think the game is a good direction as well, because it's, again, adds that element of unknown. It's like exploring the mansion in the original game. You've kind of got, you're always going to get funneled in the right direction, but you've got this loose direction of self-control as well, and what you look at, how you approach puzzles, and when and where.
Well, even in the demo, you've got two endings, haven't you? And depending on the order of what you do, the phone call changes as well, the dialogue changes. So hopefully that's a good indication for plenty of varied choices in the game.
I'm hopeful for that too.
It's interesting how Capcom have flipped the colours on the Umbrella logo as well this year. Because if you look at the Umbrella Corps logo, the red and white, because usually the red is north, south, east, west, but now it's on the diagonal axis. And if you look at the photo of the Umbrella helicopter, it's the same again. I don't know why they've changed it.
Because it's Neo Umbrella.
No, because Neo Umbrella used the same colours. It used the north, south, east, west, red. So I don't know why they've changed it this year. It's really weird. If you wanted a connection between Umbrella Corps and 7, there you go. The Umbrella logo has the colours going the same way.
Let's just hope it's a continuity error that they just didn't think about.
Is it continuity? I don't know. I've tried looking it up online, and the colours generally are the red is north, south, east, west.
Why don't you just tilt your head?
Yeah, but I don't know if that's how it works.
There's variations on the design as well. Some of them have had directly sharp pointed sides. Sometimes it's had a bevel kind of curve to the top. And points, and it's changed quite a lot. I don't know if I can really read the colour directions into it any different than that, but maybe, who knows, maybe there is an actual thought behind it. If so, why?
So I think what we want to do is, what's your main hope? Go through each one. What's your main hope? Based on what you've played or seen in the demo, what's your main hope of 7? Start with Romby.
I guess the demo's given me hope that it could be an intriguing story. I've got very little concerns about it, which is nice as well. I'm relatively trying to be optimistic about it as well, because I'm so easily pessimistic about the series, and I'm very just generally hopeful that this is a good decision. I'm hoping it's not done for just the VR purposes, because I think we've all agreed that it's a really, if it is specifically only because of the VR thing, it may end up being a gimmicky bad move, but I'm hopeful with the writer of Spec Ops that the dialogue, that's another thing we haven't touched on, is the dialogue, and the VHS tape feels reasonably natural and quite well written, and I was quite happy with that as well. So for more of that and more of that tone, I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Batman?
I'm just looking forward to having a more grounded experience. I'm pleased they've moved away from the whole global aspect with massive bioterrorism incidents. I just want it to be realistic horror based on real science that's potentially exaggerated, just like the first game. I want a character who we can relate to, in as much as he doesn't have a clue what's going on, and it's a mystery story. It's a small mystery story with horror elements. I don't even know what I want from a Resident Evil 7 game, to be honest, but from what I've seen so far, I'm quietly happy. I'm a bit like Rombi. There's nothing in there which is, giving me too much cause for concern.
Stars?
I'm hugely positive toward it, and I can't wait to see where they go with it. My greatest hope for the game is that they get the combat really right, and I would love it. A lot of people are thinking in the demo the goal is to get to the third floor, and people have managed to glitch the top floor, and there is a room beyond. And I just keep thinking, what if Capcom presented us with a game where you're in a house kind of environment, and you know where you need to get to, and you hear a crash downstairs, and then you know something's coming to get you, and you know that you're not a STARS member, you're not anyone really hard, you're just literally holding an axe in your hands, and you manage to fight off something, and all you're trying to do is just get to where you need to be, and you cannot stop what's coming, and then you just hear another crash, and I just really hope they nail the combat. I really do. I wouldn't even mind if when they introduce shotguns or guns, you actually have to stand still and you can't move again, because you've actually got to take care to aim properly, because you're not adept at using firearms, so you've got to think about what you're doing. If you get a shotgun, wouldn't it be good if you actually had a really slow reload? Imagine the tension as something bursts through a door and it's coming towards you, and you think, fucking hell, I've got to get this shell in, and then you have to stand still and aim. I really hope that, as much as the game has slowed down the exploration, because it's first person, you're exploring the environments, the combat's the biggest thing, and they've confirmed combat's in there, and one of the stills they've released has shown there's a shotgun lent up against the wall, and I don't want to play as a superhero anymore. I want to feel vulnerable, I want to feel scarehead.
Don't bite my head off. I wonder if you're going to go down this person who's never picked up a gun before. Perhaps he's a bit like the old Barry Stores, I don't touch no guns, that kind of crap, but he has to in that kind of situation. He picks up the shotgun. Wouldn't it be interesting if they had, I said, don't bite my head off, a slightly Gaiden-esque system? Not left, right, but a kind of you hold it, but you're petrified, so you're shaking, so it's all going all over the place, and you can easily miss, because that's the only way I really feel that system.
To be fair, a great idea. Didn't they suggest that they brought that into Dark Side Chronicles, and that was all?
Well, no, but the thing is, though, if you play Resident Evil 5 and you hold a pistol and you try and shoot one of the blue medallions at a distance, your hand sways.
Yeah.
So if they adapted that to a first person but accentuated it so it has more of a sway, if you play like a Battlefield game and you try and use a scope and don't hold your breath, the scope sways and it's really, really fucking hard to hit. Well, if you're trying to do that while something's fucking running at you in a tight corridor, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
That is really fucking scary, because there's no guarantee. You have to actually be better than the game to be
I think it's something that's particularly hard to get right, though, because it was particularly frustrating with Dark Side Chronicles. They did make a whole big idea about the fear, and I think one of the differences and improvements they were saying it was going to have an over and above umbrella was the idea that the camera would sort of move and sway around, affecting your aim.
They also tried something similar in Resident Evil 6 as well, particularly with the sniper rifle. If you tried to aim through that, it was shaking all over the place, and the only way to sort it out was to get the steady aim skill point.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But I like the idea that what happens in the gameplay will have more of an effect on that. There was that game on the GameCube, Eternal Darkness, but it's kind of a psychological thriller, and as the fear induces, and it would even make you think the volume had gone up, and it would make you think that your game had turned off without saving it, and it really tried to play on the psychological thing. But the more you became fearful and the more fearful experiences you encountered, the less control you had over sort of the aiming and things like that.
What's your hope then, Paul, for RE7? That's where we're kind of at the moment. Your biggest hope, your one single hope.
That it keeps very much in the vein of the demo, and that we don't have another sort of Hookman scenario. I think with the release date of January set in stone, that won't happen. But just that it stays in that same vein, but that it doesn't become a VR kind of a gimmicky.
Right, okay. What do I want? I agree with George. The vein of the demo is certainly something that I have been drawn to, and something that I feel the series was in desperate need for. I really like the kind of cabin in the woods style vibe it's going for. I don't think the game will be like that, and I have a sneaky feeling that when we come back, probably in September, to discuss it again, I think our discussions will be somewhat different. I don't think it's going to stay that isolated. I think it's going to expand. I've just got a horrible feeling, and call me a cynic, that we're going to be a bit disappointed with what we see of the game proper, but I hope not. I think I've mentioned it before on the podcast, the kind of Until Dawn on PS4. That's got to be one of the most terrifying games.
But if I can just end my little bit on Resident Evil 7, going back to Condemned Criminal Origins, I think Capcom are massively influenced by that game. It's primarily melee based, there's guns in it, but there's so little ammunition in there, you've got to be really, really careful with it. It's also full of like psychological horror aspects. Like, I know Capcom have said there'll be nothing supernatural in the final game, but in Condemned, you're playing as like a disgraced FBI agent, and he's constantly hallucinating because he's taking cocktail mix of like alcohol and pills. There's one cracking level where you're going through like a derelict department store and there's loads of mannequins everywhere. It's in first person obviously, and as soon as you walk past the mannequin, if you stop and turn around, the mannequin has moved closer to you.
Oh man.
A bit like the angels from Doctor Who.
Yeah, exactly like that. And every time you turn around, these fucking mannequins are getting closer and closer to literally filling up the entire screen. It's a really, really cool effect. If Resident Evil 7 can do that as well as Condemned did, then I don't think we're disappointed.
We don't have any call-ins, but we do have a message from a new member of Project Umbrella, Dan from Umbrella. That's his name. He is obviously keen to hear our views on RE7, and his general question for us was whether it's restored faith that Remake 2 will be better, because we've had this little snippet of what RE7 is going to be. Very quickly, please, without everyone losing their minds.
No. If anything, the direction of Resident Evil 7 just makes me even more confident that Remake 2 won't be anything like the original Resident Evil 2 in terms of the camera and how it looks.
But what if it's like RE7?
First person?
Not necessarily first person, but like if they can nail maybe an RE7 atmosphere in Remake 2, it's always going to have a slightly different vibe.
I've no doubt the atmosphere will be much more toned down than the likes of 4, 5 and 6, but I still think they haven't a hope in hell in recapturing the original magic. I think it's a doomed project and they just shouldn't bother.
I agree. I totally agree. I think they had their chance with Darkside and they fucked every aspect of that.
Yeah.
There's no part of Darkside Chronicles I'd choose over the original. Not a single fucking part.
No. I'm trying to think.
This has been such a negative cast on it. Even though 7's brilliant, we all tend to agree it's like a positive step. Everything around it's fucking horrible. It really is.
We'll just blame Umbrella Corps.
My answer is similar to John's. Batman, I think, if anything, it's going to have an even more negative. Just in fact, almost gives Capcom an excuse to err away from that and bring it up to date with things that are just going to completely detract from the survival horror, because they think they're dishing up survival horror through RE7.
Resident Evil 7 doesn't make that impact, but what makes the impact is the same thing I brought up earlier, which is this idea about different games for different people. And in that respect, where does Resident Evil 2 Remake fit for that audience? Is it like a Revelations 2 title? It's clearly not an action title, but it's not going to be anywhere near as horror as Resident Evil 7. So for that reason, I'm not very confident.
I think one point that I sort of almost bury, because I think it's the most poignant. Batman made the point that the RE2 remake project had no atmosphere at all, and that tried to keep as religiously to the RE2 layout, the original layout, and everything about the game, and they did. So yeah, that's my biggest concern actually, that they're not going to be able to recreate the atmosphere with this next generation console and all these new mechanics.
Well, there we go. I hope that answers your question. With that, we will wrap up our Resident Evil demo discussion, and we'll move on to this podcast edition of Neptune's Biohazard Quiz. New format. New questions. And new challenges. Each broadcast a new quiz to test the resolve. Welcome to Neptune's Biohazard Quiz! So hello and welcome to this edition of Neptune's Biohazard Quiz. We have some devilish questions, I think is the best term to describe. They've come from Crimson Head Elder and from USS Command, both members of George is your website. There is one question number 5, that George, I've been told you should get this one.
Okay.
Question 5 is by USS Command, and I've been told, got this on the question, GT should get some of this. So there we go. Right, so if everyone can clear their desktops, open up Notepad if you want. Here we go. Question number 1. So the first 4 come from Crimson Elder. This is a voice actor question.
Oh, God.
No, for fuck's sake.
The voice actor for Richard Aiken in Darkside Chronicles is Yuri Lowenthal, but what other character in the series has he played?
Hang on a minute. Richard Aiken in what game?
Darkside Chronicles.
Richard Aiken wasn't in Darkside Chronicles. It's a boy.
What are you on about?
It's a void question.
Crimson
Richard
Elder.
Aiken was voiced by Joe White, who voiced Chris Redfield.
Yes, exactly.
Don't blame me. You can't blame me for this. I just copy him out.
Was that Umbrella Chronicles, not Darkside Chronicles?
Yeah, I was going to say maybe he meant
There
that.
we go. That's what he meant. Umbrella Chronicles.
So that's just your fault for reading it out wrong. Yeah, don't blame
I will blame Crimson.
Don't start blaming my staff members.
I will, because he put DSC. I literally copied and pasted it.
So hang on, you got your staff members to write the questions for this
I'd
quiz
never
that you're
be
doing. Oh, Jesus.
Inside job.
They've been very kind to send me lots of very difficult questions. So we'll start again. The voice actor for Richard Aiken in Umbrella Chronicles is Yuri Lowenthal, but what other character in the series has he played? And it's not... I'll give you a clue. It's not confined to Umbrella Chronicles.
So he's voiced, you mean another character in Resident Evil?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And not necessarily that game?
Yes, yeah. I'll tell you that for nothing. It's another game entirely. Okay, question number 2. After the Stars was disbanded, the RPD replaced them with another unit. What was this? Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't know that answer, but that goes without saying. Question number 3. This is an odd one out question. I will say, as a caveat, there are lots of answers. I think the usual Biohazard Stars rules apply. I have a particular answer, so you might want to try and get into my mind as to what you think I think would be the answer. So, which is the odd one out of the following characters? Yoko Suzuki, David Ford, Kevin Ryman.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So which is the odd one out between the following characters? Yoko Suzuki, David Ford, or Kevin Ryman?
Am I allowed to Google Kevin Ford? I presume he was in Outbreak.
No, you bloody not.
Well, it's not part of the...
Can I look up the
Okay,
answers?
I haven't...
I'll just look up Yuri what's-his-name's resume, shall I?
Wait, why?
Jesus.
Why?
I just searched for the answer, and I'll give you the answers, and it'll be great.
That was amazing.
No, I think is the answer you're looking for.
How do you spell that voice actor's name?
Fucking hell, that's amazing.
So question number...
I asked.
Yeah. Question number 4. Which non-playable character shares his name with an actor to play the Doctor in the rather excellent Doctor Who series?
Sorry, question again. That one was a mind bender. Go
I
on.
didn't understand a word of that.
Yeah, go on, Nick.
I wrote this question 3 times. I ran it past the wife because I know what answer I wanted, and I could not, for the life of me, put it down. Which non-playable character shares his name with an actor to play the Doctor in Doctor Who?
So he's played the Doctor in Doctor Who, this actor?
Yes, and yes.
Full name or last name?
No, full name.
So his real name in real life, the actor, is a name in Resident Evil?
Is a non-playable character. Does anyone want a clue?
Yeah.
He's an employee of Raccoon Zoo.
Oh, fucking another Outbreak question.
This comes courtesy of Resident Evil Wiki. And finally, question number 5. This is from USS Command. And welcome, gentlemen, to Non-Canon Corner. Oh, yes. So this is one that George Trevor should get. Or at least some of it. Name a brand of beer seen in Operation Raccoon City.
What? He's just saying that to take the piss. Why? Why would I know?
Don't know. It's non-canon corner. I think this might become a regular occurrence.
This quiz, some of the questions in
This
is unreal. This is one of the hardest quizzes ever, but not for the right reasons. It's not like, testing our timeline ability. It's basically, this is as bad as that fucking question a few years back where we had to freeze frame a 0.5 second image on Damnation to find out the fucking brand of the laptop.
I think you're going to have to start banning people from. I think Vito and USS Command, I think, need to be banned from sending in questions.
Okay. Well, I'll pass those thoughts on. That concludes the quiz. Join us after this when we'll run through the answers.
That farm belongs to the Peacock.
So welcome back to Neptune's Biohazard quiz. Question number 1 came from Crimson Elder, mistakenly, but there we go. The voice actor for Richard Aiken in Umbrella Chronicles was Yuri Lowenthal, but what other character in the series did he play? I think this could be guesswork. We'll start with George Trevor, the master of voice actors.
Yeah, I've got no idea. It must be after Umbrella Chronicles. I'm going to say William Birkin.
Okay.
In Operation Raccoon City.
Oh, very specific. Batman?
Oh, I haven't got a clue. I don't have any interest in voice actors. I'm going to guess Steve Burnside in Darkside Chronicles.
Okay. Romby?
I have no idea. Do we get half a point if we guess the right game?
Maybe.
I'm going to take a guess. I'm on the same bandwagon. It'll be after that game. I'm guessing someone in Resident Evil 6, but I have no clue who. I have no idea.
Stars?
It's interesting. George said he thinks he plays Birkin in Operation Raccoon City. I had no answer for this question, but now he said that, I'm going to go for Birkin in Umbrella Chronicles.
Sadly, it's no points. It's Neil Fisher.
Oh.
What the hell?
Who'd have thought? Who'd have thunk? There we go. Right. So no points there, I'm afraid. So after the stars were disbanded, the RPD replaced them with another unit. What was this? Romby, did you know? There's two answers here.
I'm pretty sure it was some sort of SWAT team. I think it's the one that we see in Resident Evil 3.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Okay. George?
It's a good question. I'm surprised that it's not like a sort of really commonly known answer. I've got no idea. So this was a direct replacement for stars?
Yep.
I'm trying to think of dead bodies in RE3 and what uniforms they're wearing. No, I don't know.
Okay. Stars Tyrant?
Isn't it the unit that Kevin, Ryman and Leon are going to be part of because they wear the same uniform, but I don't know what it's called.
Okay. Batman?
It's just Raccoon SWAT, but it was mistranslated as the Raccoon Select Police Force.
Very good. Points there for Batman and for Romby. Yes, it's correct. Very good, Batman. For getting both of it. It was correct. That's Raccoon SWAT or the Select Police Force, which was the mistranslation.
Which is that featured in then? Which source?
It's just in the archives book.
Is it? No, right.
John, welcome back. Can I ask you the questions so you can have a go?
Yeah, sure.
So question number 1 was the voice actor for Richard Aiken in Umbrella Chronicles is Yuri Lowenthal. What other character in the series did he play?
He's done a lot of voice work, like in anime and stuff like that.
Has it? Oh, right.
Yeah, I think he was in like the Tales of series as well. Yuri. Right, let me think here. Right, let's see. Because he was, what was he? Richard Aiken in Umbrella Chronicles?
Yes.
I'm going to take a guess and say Carlos Oliveira in Umbrella Chronicles. I don't know.
It was Neil Fisher.
Ah, okay.
Question number 2 we've just done. You cheekily get this point. After the Stars was disbanded, the RPD replaced them with another unit. What was it?
Now, I only heard I only overheard someone say select police force as I was putting a headset on. And I remember hearing that and going, that can't be right. Because I remember that being a thing somewhere in I think it was archives.
Bullshit. This sounds very authentic, John.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep going.
But what would he replace with? I think it was a SWAT team or something. We'll go with that.
Yeah, point
Can
there.
I look up the answers while we're doing the quiz, please?
So select police force was a mistranslation.
Can I just Google that? Is that alright?
Very good. Okay, fine. I'll give you the point, John, just for the
Fucking hell!
Hello.
Fucking hell!
Hello.
Are you serious? Nick, can you come to me last on every question from now, so I can pick and choose the best answer?
No, fair point. You're not having that. We're now on to question 3. So listen up, John. Which is an odd one out question. So which is the odd one out between the following characters: Yoko Suzuki, David Ford, or Kevin Ryman? John, you need some time to think. So we'll start with Batman.
Kevin Ryman and David Ford were both police officers, and Yoko wasn't.
Okay. George Trevor.
So I thought it had something to do with NASA.
Naturally.
Fucking Jesus. This quiz, honestly, it's killing me. This quiz is the umbrella core of our podcast. It's fucking ruined.
Oh dear.
We haven't got the answer yet. Oh god, right, go on, Kevin.
Can I just ask, where did NASA come from?
I've got no idea. If you Google David Ford, you get he's an astronaut in real life, I think. Because I just his pictures fashion.
So you admit to using Google then?
I thought I could at least be allowed to know what game he was in. I thought Nick would tell us who he was. I've never Googled anything before on this quiz. I don't know. I have no idea.
You can guess. I suppose you get half a point for getting the right person.
Who's the odd one out?
Yeah.
David Ford, because he's the only one who's got a namesake who's an astronaut.
I like your train of thought. The caveat, of course, to this question was you've got to think like me, and I think very weird. Stars Tyrant.
Well, there's so many answers.
There are so many answers, that's right.
Because, you could say David Ford, Kevin Ryman are RPD officers and Yoko isn't. Mm-hmm. So Yoko's the odd one out. You could say David Ford's the only character that hasn't been represented physically in a game, so then he's the odd one out.
Yep.
You could say he's also the odd one out because he's not in Outbreak.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is up to whatever the answer is. It's just worse than the fucking lottery. This is. How do I know you're just not going to change the answer?
Because I've got the answer written down, and it's.
Then don't worry, Sean. Don't worry if you don't win the lottery. Just ask and you can draw the numbers again if your numbers don't come out.
Then I'm going to say it will be Yoko because she's not an RPD officer.
Okay. Romby?
I was going to guess Yoko. I had no idea why. I just was picking at random.
Okay. And Mr. Spencer?
Well, this is like what Sean said, isn't it? When it's like it could be any of them.
Yep.
Because of various reasons. So this isn't about finding the truth to something. This is about how to get inside your fucking mind.
Correct.
Right? And I'm thinking, right, which is stupid, right? So I'm going to think, right.
This goes back to the old Shooting Stars style question. You remember Shooting Stars when there used to be name a breed of dog, and someone would say Labrador, and it's German Shepherd, and they would fucking get the answer wrong. Yeah, it's a load of bollocks.
Right? So now I think the key to answering this question correctly is to think, right, what would Nick say? Now, what's Nick like as a person? Let's see, he's conservative, voted Leave, Daily Mail reader. I'm gonna say.
If this is Nick's question, then the answer will be wrong.
Yeah, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to say it's Yoko because she's not a police officer. It's the obvious answer, but again, it worries me because it's obvious. But I'm going to go with that.
Sadly,
I should say on a legal point, I can't be done for cheating because I accidentally Googled Kevin Ford. Right, not whoever you are.
You actively admit to having a browser open during the quiz. It's fucking unbelievable.
Who the fuck's Kevin Ford?
He's a NASA astronaut and retired US Air Force.
Okay.
It's unbelievable. How many times do you have the browser open?
I opened it. I didn't have it open.
Well, there's one for porn, obviously.
I specifically opened it.
This throws the whole quiz into disrepute.
No, well, it was already on YouPorn, so I just...
Well, we know where it was because we remember that fucking podcast, don't we, boys? When the porn quiz is happening, yeah.
let's get back to the answer. Now, the clue was actually in the names. The odd one out was Kevin Ryman, because the other two are brands of car, where Ryman is a stationer's.
Fuck's sake,
That just makes me angry.
There was no fucking way, because I'm actually pissed now. I'm fucking annoyed.
Yeah, I know, that's made me annoyed as well.
It's not even a Resident Evil themed answer.
That's what I mean. Let me just continue. Because
protest.
We would come at it from a law point of view. That is basically like
voting
saying
B.
that is the equivalent of saying what are the 6 lottery numbers that are going to be drawn tonight, and if you get one wrong, the answer is wrong. It's fucking bollocks.
Do you know what the answer to this is? Everyone just gets a point anyway.
Except Paul, because he googled stuff.
The answers that were given tonight were logical. They were within the series. We have canon sort of reasons for it, but no, it's because we didn't know the car manufacturers.
It's quite obvious. Suzuki, Ford.
No.
I know that now. Fucking hell.
You've managed to induce more hatred than Umbrella Corp.
You know the worst part? The worst part is this, Sean, right? If you turn round now and rightly say to Paul, well, hang on, he's been Googling. That's cheating. That's against the rules. He'll just go, I mean, NASA, there was some NASA thing here with what? And he fobs his way out of it. He fobs his way out of it. That's not an answer.
What did that even mean? What?
George will probably win this quiz.
Cheated his way to it.
Oh, sorry. I'm crying my eyes out.
That question is fucking bullshit.
Fine. Points to Batman, Mr. Spencer, Stars Tyrant, and Romby.
Well, I don't see the problem. I asked for permission. I said, am I allowed to Google Kevin Ford?
I'll take to the streets of London and protest, see if that'll do any good.
Why can't we just have normal questions like name the first and last names of every playable character of the core cast in Outbreak? Not what characters in the Resident Evil series have their coincidences with fucking car manufacturers. Jesus Christ!
Come on, Nick, sort it out.
Yes, they're there. Okay.
Well, the correct answer was Kevin because his surname begins with O. That's how stupid your answer is, Nick. It's a fucking omnishambles of a quiz, this. Next question.
Moving on. Which non-playable character shares his name with an actor to play the Doctor in Doctor Who? So we had the clue that he was an employee of Raccoon Zoo.
I'm sure I've seen the name Peter Davidson on the RE Wiki, so I'm going to say Peter
okay, George,
Davidson.
straight in there with Peter Davison. That's the 5th Doctor. Stars Tyrant.
The only name that popped into my head, and it's really weird, and so I'm hoping it's premonition, is Colin Baker. I don't know why. I have no idea why. It's probably wrong.
Romby?
I have no idea. I don't watch Doctor Who.
Fool on you.
Yeah, I have no clue whatsoever.
No. Mr. Spencer?
Well, let's see. Smith is a very common surname.
Yes.
I think Matt Smith. I want to say Matt Smith. I'm going to say Matt Smith because he's got.
I bet you're right, just because he's
I know where you've got it from. There's a file, isn't there, in Outbreak with a list of all the zoo employees.
Maybe.
For like an evaluation, but I can't think of who. Patrick Troughton.
The second Doctor.
You're just showing off.
I know the Doctors. Yeah, that's fair. A point for Mr. Spencer. It's Matt Smith.
I knew it'd be Matt Smith.
Is it off that file, that evaluation employee form?
I think so.
Bastard.
I think so.
I have too many damn Matt Smiths. Why didn't I just guess that?
What a fucking cunt. Because I was nearly going to go for Matt Smith.
Is that a good enough question for you?
It was too obvious.
No, because it relied on your knowledge not of Resident Evil, but of Doctor Who.
Doctor Who actors.
Yeah, so Romby can't answer it because he doesn't know about Doctor Who. No, I think it's another disgraceful question.
His fault for not being British, isn't it?
That file.
We have Doctor Who here.
Yeah, the ones from the 70s, because that's where your country's still at in the timeline of history.
Right, okay. Well done, Mrs. Spencer, for getting the point there. So, question number 5 was welcome to Non-Canon Corner, brought to you by USS Command. So, can you name a brand of beer seen in Operation Raccoon City? I say it's guessable. It's Resident Evil related, so it's quite in the same way, I suppose.
If I ask if I can cheat, would that be all right?
Well, yeah, it might be. But do you want to go first?
Fuck knows.
It's really tongue-in-cheek. It's really naff.
Arkley Ale.
Arkley, that's a good shout. Mr. Spencer?
Let's see. So it's a tongue-in-cheek joke. It's meant to be something stupid or whatever.
Yep.
Arkley's a bit too much of a stretch for even the people who work at Operation Raccoon City who worked on it. They're not going to be that smart to come to that. They're going to be something even stupider. You come back to me, please, while I'm thinking.
Okay, fine. Stars Tyrant?
Raccoon Red.
Okay. Romby?
I have no idea. Played it once.
You can hazard a guess.
Try car manufacturers, you're close enough.
Actors who were in Blake 7.
No guess.
I'm going to guess there's something to do with herbs or something, because you put plants in for beer, so
okay.
It's green herb or red herb something or other, or blue herb ale or something.
Okay, back to Mr. Spencer.
Virus ale, I don't know. Don't go with that shit.
Well, would you Adam and Eve it? Romby gets a point.
Oh, fucking Google.
Red Herb IPA. There we go. It's the Ale of Ale, as it's described in the game. I feel slightly sorry for Sean, because I was going to give him half a point for saying red. But then I'm afraid Romby outdid you, which means, let's look at the final scores. It means Batman and Mr. Spencer finish on 1 point. That's in second place. George Trevor and Stars Tyrant sadly with 0 points. Romby, this week's winner again, with 2 points.
Hey, didn't I get a point for the fucking shambles of a question?
Yeah, we all got a point except George Trevor.
Oh, man, I came bottom and I used Google.
I thought we all got a point for the
Yeah, we
shambles.
did.
Yeah, that's just a fair point. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So we're on reflection.
Fuck.
Well, no, I didn't think
Oh
it
my
made. I didn't think it
God.
made a difference, but then it did. I realised.
Can't even do the fucking scores right, let alone the questions. I wish I'd missed this now. I wish I was still at Tesco getting food. I wish I'd missed this fucking mess of a quiz and not had to get involved in it.
I wish I'd just played Umbrella Corps.
Better than this.
I'm coming. You love it. You love it. So in last place is George with 0. Then Stars Tyrant with 1. Batman and Mr. Spencer share second place with 2 points, and the sixth winner with 3 points is Romby. Yay! So well done, Romby. I think that's 2 podcasts on the trot now. Well done.
See, this is why I voted leave, because you get all these foreigners coming over here winning our quizzes.
On that note, we'll leave the quiz. Join us next time where we'll have some even better questions. You love the quiz. It brings much needed humour to what is normally a doom and gloom podcast.
I love the quiz. I hate the fucking questions and I hate the bloody host.
So you love the quiz as a concept, but hate everything about it.
It's a bit like the European Union.
Hey!
Oh, dear. So next podcast we are going to be opening the can of worms that is Umbrella Corps. We will have medics on standby ready to try and bring Stars Tyrant back to life.
I can't wait for the standoff. This is going to be great.
And then we'll take a vote at the end of it to see who do we think's right over this. Is it Stars Tyrant or Batman?
It's just going to be another fucking referendum, isn't it? About Umbrella Corps this time.
Why not? Why not? So on that note, we will bid you farewell. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've all enjoyed it. It's always a good laugh to record it. So it's goodbye from me, Neptune.
Goodbye from me, Batman.
Goodbye from me, Stars Tyrant.
Goodbye from me, Romby.
Goodbye for me, George Trevor.
And it's good night from me, Mr. Spencer.
Prisoner with no parole. They locked me up and took my soul. I'm She'll run to him like he's the one. His arms outstretched, but when she's done, he'll be torn